I'm finally back. Yeah, it's been a little bit. Life happens. Did not have time to do this. I had my sister's wedding. Congratulations to her. A lot of other stuff, a lot of travel, a lot of moving and grooving. But I'm back. We're doing it again. I didn't just stop. We got too much to do. Too much work to be done. But oh shit. It's going to be a loud video. Actually don't think it's that loud. I think it's just loud in my ears. Yeah, you know what? I think we passed the 100 mark on Pumpkin Hill Radio. That was another big part. Yeah, a lot going on. I got the new shirt. Here, hold up. Let me see. Let me show. Wearing the new shirt. Return to Water Glory. It's the Return to Water Glory shirt. We've been hyping it up for a long time. I like it a lot in black. I got a really needy cat back here. I was out of town for a weekend, and he has not just been more traumatized in his life, I guess. He was alone. Of course, he's got plenty of food. You know, he's taken care of, but he does not like when I'm not home for a while. And then I had to work for like 3 days in a row. It was a mess. But yeah, Return to Water Glory shirts. Check it out. Links at the website, pumpkinhillradio.com. This is the black one. I think I might try to make it just like a navy blue, just because it's already like a black design, and some of the parts don't really show up as much as I'd like them to. Might just be a working design, but the shirt's still sick, so I like it. I got the back Pumpkin Hill Radio on there. Logo on there. Hell yeah. Anyway. That's enough of that. You know what to do. You've been here before. You know what it is. You know what you've seen the YouTube videos. Subscribe to the Patreon also, whatever. But yeah, I'm getting into the 13 bloodlines. The serpent seed. Fallen angels. So I found this video. I kind of liked the vibe of it. I did not listen or watch much of it. So we're just going to get into it. We might fucking switch it up. I don't know.
Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion.
Whoa.
Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition.
Make money and be part of the whole endeavor of surviving within the materialistic economy and the global driven system, which has all that. Fritz Springmeyer and Dolores Ann Lundberg, and they're calling in. Get into the dialogue.
Okay, well, yeah. As you probably have been noticing, that most of the time, if I can find the time to.
Here we go. Just gonna be just trying to find some info. That was too long format. This, I don't need the intro.
Of the Franks from the middle of the 5th century until 751. Their royal bloodline emerging as the King of the Franks, a group of Germanic people whose name was first mentioned in 3rd century Roman sources, but along with other Germanic tribes that I mentioned in my last video, stem from Scythians or Aryans that penetrated into Europe from Anatolia. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll leave a link in the description.
Nice.
It's called
So that's pretty much
History
where
of
I'm
the
from.
Royal Dragon Bloodline. And their ancient symbol was the dragon, which comes down to us in legends of invading dragons in European mythology. When we look up the etymology of the word dragon, we find that it says, from Old French dragon, and directly from Latin draconum, or draco, meaning huge serpent, and from Greek drakon, meaning serpent, giant sea fish. But then it also says it stems from Dirkistai, to see clearly, and from Proto-Indo-European dirk, to see. In Sanskrit, visible. In Old Irish, I have seen. Old English and Old High German, light, clear. And Albanian, which linguistically is very close to the original Proto-Indo-European and means light. Then it goes on to say, perhaps in the literal sense, it's the one with the deadly glance. That's interesting and conjures up the ancient symbol that is most commonly referred to as the evil eye, which is famous all over the Mediterranean since ancient times, spanning much of what has once been
Nice.
the Phoenician Empire, colonies, and trade routes. In Hebrew, dragon translates to Tannin, a great sea monster, which brings us back to the Merovingians, whose name is said to derive from Merovi, king of the Franks. According to the legend, Merovi had two fathers, King Clodion and a strange beast of the sea. The druidic title of Pendragon, which means high dragon or king of kings, was passed on to the Merovingian kings in 666 AD.
That's also Pendragon is King Arthur was Pendragon.
In Bloodline of the Holy Grail, Lawrence Gardner says, quote, despite the carefully listed genealogies of his time, the heritage of Merovios was strangely obscured in the monastic annals. Although the rightful son of Clodion, he was nonetheless said by historians Priscus to have been sired by an arcane sea creature, the Bisti Neptunus. The Cimbrian Franks, from whose female line the Merovingians emerged, were associated with the Grecian Arcadia before migrating to the Rhineland. As we have seen, they call themselves the Numaj, people of the New Covenant, just as the Essenes of Qumran had once been known. It was the Arcadian legacy that was responsible for the mysterious sea beast, the Bisti Neptunus, as symbolically defined in the Merovingian ancestry. The relevant sea lord was King Pallas, a god of old Arcadia. The immortal sea lord was said to be ever incarnate in the dynasty of ancient kings, whose symbol was a fish, as was the traditional symbol of Jesus. This sea creature represents
Interesting.
Neptune, the god of the sea in mythology, who is said to have founded Atlantis, which is the pagan version of the pre-flood civilization which God judged in Genesis, and it describes the intermarriage of mankind with the sons of gods. Quote, and it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, of which were of old, men of renown. It implies that the serpent seed continues after the deluge through Noah's Caucasian descendants, with the serpent being perceived in different ways, depending on the civilization, as even Jesus is said to have referred to serpents as wise. The legend of King Merovi seems to conceal the true origins of the Merovingian race in remote antiquity. Merovius derives from the French words mer, meaning sea, and ver, meaning werewolf or dragon. The book of Revelation informs us that the dragon is the devil and Satan, yet the Hebrew word Satan means an adversary or one who resists. So again, what should be considered is from whose perspective is the story being told. This helps to explain the esoteric allusion to the Merovingians' progenitor, King Merovi, a king of France sired by a mysterious beast of the sea, and the claim that the Merovingian dynasty is of literally satanic descent. In the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the authors tell us, quote, there are at least a dozen families in Britain and Europe today, with numerous collateral branches who are of Merovingian lineage. These include the House of Habsburg, Lorraine, Planter, Luxembourg, Montesquieu, and various others. According to the pre-war documents, the Sinclair family in Britain is also allied to the bloodline, as are various branches of the Stuarts. In many of its documents, the scion asserts that the new king, in accordance with the Merovingian tradition, would rule but not govern. In other words, he would be a priest king who functions primarily in a ritual and symbolic capacity, and the actual business of governing would be handled by someone else, conceivably by the Priory de Sion. After the Merovingian dynasty was deposed by the Roman Church in 800 AD, their bloodline was preserved by the imperial and royal dragon court, which conspired to regain control of the Holy Roman Empire through infiltration of church and state. Their insignia was a dragon in the form of a circle and a red cross, the rosy cross of the Priory de Sion, the Knights Templar, and the Rosicrucians. King Sigismund of Luxembourg was king of Hungary and Croatia from 1387, king of Germany from 1411, king of Bohemia from 1419, king of Italy from 1431, and Holy Roman Emperor from 1433 until 1437, and the last male member of the House of Luxembourg. When he reconstituted the imperial and royal dragon court in 1408, called the Societas Draconis, it was based upon the ancient bloodline tradition he had inherited from his presumed Egyptian and Scythian ancestors through the royal house of Vere of Anjou. This line had descended on one side through the Tuatha De Danann, or the dragon kings of Anu, who come down to us in myth as a race of fairies, and not in a metaphysical context, but an actual race of people that settled Ireland from around 800 BC, as well as the Black Sea Scythian princes from around modern Ukraine, which I covered in my last video, and identified as synonymous with the Aryans, and the Egyptian dragon dynasty of Sobek, who is the crocodile god portrayed as a crocodile-headed man with the headdress of feathers and a sun disk, known as Sukos in Greek, associated with pharaonic power, fertility, present in the ancient Egyptian pantheon from the Old Kingdom through the Roman period. This Egyptian lineage, incidentally, included the bloodline of the Davidic house of Judah, who married into the Merovingian kings of the Franks. In the book Holy Grail Across the Atlantic, author Michael Bradley says, quote, there was a very great Jewish component among the Sicumbrian Franks, Merovingians, and because they practiced polygamy, they left a great number of offspring. These aristocratic Merovingian children married into almost all of the noble families of Europe during the 5th, 6th, and 7th centuries. This has prompted more than one historian to suggest that the foundation of European nobility is Jewish. According to Nicholas de Vere, author of The Dragon Legacy, members of the dragon court would often wear the insignia of a dragon curved into a circle with a red cross, the same emblem of the original Rosy Cross, which had identified the Grail succession from before 3000 BC. Quote, it is just possible that in the Merovingians we may have a dynasty of Germanic Hirconage, which means army kings or military leaders, derived from an ancient kingly family of the migration period. The princedoms of Vere are actually cultural manifestations of genetic qualities carried in the historical elven blood royal, established in Angers in 740 as a royal house arising from far older sacral, regal, Pictish, Scythian Vere origins rooted in antiquity. The House of Vere is recorded in a single name and in an unbroken line for over 1,300 years, and consequently is one of the oldest surviving royal dynasties in Europe. The House of Vere are descended in numerous lines from the Merovingian dynasty and consequently share in this ancient Germanic royal blood tradition. Here's Nicholas de Vere in his own words.
What is the significance of the dragon symbolism, symbolizing, I guess, the origin of this race and the source of the power that it represents? I remember you saying in your book that you can trace that back to the Sumerian figure of Tiamat, the original dragon goddess, who sort of represented the chaos out of which the universe was created.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you exactly?
The symbol of the dragon.
Yes, in connection to what you're doing.
Transcendent consciousness.
Okay.
The ability to clear the mind. Let's have a look at the word dragon. The word dragon comes from the Greek edrakon, which is what they call an aorist, or a verb that hasn't got a past, present or future tense. It's just a verb. Of the word dokesthai, which is a word which simply means to see clearly. Now, that means that the word dragon simply means one who sees clearly. The idea of kingship, or the word, let's have a look at the word king. King means to see clearly. So that
Dragons are so cool. That's all I'm going to say.
dragon
That's
means
it.
to see clearly. So therefore, dragon king is a bit of a tautology, really, because dragon and king are the same thing, or dragon and prince, the first. The symbol of dragon for me represents, firstly, you have the serpentine quality of it, which has always been associated with healing, with the spinal column and the cerebral cortex and so on. Secondly, as a serpentine figure with wings, it shows that that healing power, or the healing of the mind, has transformed the individual, who now has a higher overview of life through clarity than perhaps other people do. And this is why they were chosen as kings, and this is why, through social engineering for millennia, it was hoped to ensure that that clarity of vision would become hereditary. That's what the symbol means to me.
The stories of your ancestors, the oldest ones, you know, the ones that I guess could be identified with the gods of the ancient world, seems like, and I'm just generalizing a whole lot because we're talking about different figures from all sorts of different cultures throughout history,
Yeah.
but in general we see the same themes in the myths surrounding these figures, that the original race that they came from, the original royal race, is something beyond what we consider to be human now, and that they came from some sort of other world, something that isn't the earth that we know today, that they had some sort of transcendent quality to them that was non-earthly and non-human. Is that correct?
Yes. We are doing research now, Mark Pinkham and I, into the origins of the Anunnaki way back nearly 40,000 years now, 10,000 years before the hybridization of humanity, to possibly Kashmir. They seem to be linked very, very closely with the sons of Shiva, or the Jats, of whom the main king was Sanat Kumrai, who seems to be the first Grail king in human form, so to speak. The place that Shiva came to Earth, which is very much like the falling to Earth of Lucifer, was in what they now call Shangri-La, with this otherworldly situation. But for our people, we have always been associated with Shangri-La, the Elysian Fields, Arcadia, Tirna Nog, Anwin, which is basically death for the other world.
The Principality of Wales features a red dragon, and we know the British royal family is of Germanic origins.
Or Dragon and Prince, the first. The symbol of dragon for me, world.
The Principality.
That's good. That's a cool ass flag.
Wales features a red dragon, and we know the British royal family is of Germanic origins. We also see the dragon on the flag of the Qing dynasty, the first national flag
That's
of China,
also a cool flag.
as well as the flag of Moscow in the Russian Federation, which shows St. George stabbing a dragon with a golden lance. Of course, there's a dragon on the flag of Bhutan, a Buddhist kingdom on the Himalayas' eastern edge, bordered by Tibet, and known for its monasteries, fortresses, and visits by the Ahnenerbe in the 1930s, the ancestral heritage anthropology branch of the German nationalists who conducted research into ancient Aryan archaeology around the world, finding archaeological evidence in places like Tibet, as well as the mummies of the Canary Islands, and ultimately linking them to a forgotten global civilization of Atlantis during the Pleistocene, or Ice Age, which settled in Anatolia after a major deluge and re-established civilization there, spreading out again to other parts of the world as their nobility. That said, it is these Aryan tribes that went by many names, including Scythians, that migrated into Europe in several waves, becoming the Druids, and intermarrying with the royal families and becoming sovereigns, the royal dragon bloodline. The house of Dracul, or Dracula, which means dragon, and that Prince Charles claims direct lineage, descended from Attila the Hun and was established in Central Europe by the sons of Genghis Khan. So the Druid kings were descended from Scythian royalty and later became the Merovingian dynasty, which eventually converted to Christianity. Even after their conversion to Christianity, the Merovingian rulers, like the patriarchs of the Old Testament, were polygamous, particularly with their own bloodline. This ancient use of polygamy in a royal family and occult sex magic is very ancient, as the Scythian line also stretches back into ancient Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia, as this same bloodline was not only that of the pharaohs, but also the Anunnaki, which means those of royal blood, or the serpent seed, or princely noble seed. Which brings us to Robert the Bruce, who was far more than an early Scottish king, but was high-born Merovingian, priest-king of the Celtic Church, liberator of Scotland from England, sovereign Grand Master of the Order of the Knights Templar, and founder of the Order of the Rosy Cross. According to Prince Michael Stuart, author of The Forgotten Monarchy of Scotland, quote, in 1307, under the auspices of Robert the Bruce and the excommunicated clergy, the order was restructured into a church with a hierarchy quite independent of Rome. The Templar Church had abbots, priests, and even bishops. The knights began to train the army of Robert the Bruce in the hit-and-run tactics of warfare established in the Crusades. The Roman Church may have betrayed the Templars, but in Scotland they found something far more trustworthy and tangible, a sacred royal house and a priest-king of the Celtic Church succession. The King of Scots was installed as a hereditary sovereign Grand Master, and from that time, whichever descending king held that office, he was to be known as Saint Germain. A new order was then formed, called the Elder Brothers of the Rosy Cross, and several of the Rosy Cross Knights then sailed to France for a meeting with Pope John XXII at Avignon. Many historians have presumed, therefore, that the Knights Templar must have disbanded in Scotland, but this was not the case. It was simply that Bruce had contrived the secret order to become even more secretive. Indeed, the Order of the Knights of the Rosy Cross had been established by Bruce for Templars who had been valiant at Bannockburn, and this was a very successful cover. The Merovingian dynasty still maintains its legitimacy, and according to members of the organization, will one day openly assert the divine right of their nobility to rule the world as an angelic race of demigods, whose ancestors, they claim, were the fallen angels. My name is Robert Sepper. I'm an anthropologist.
Interesting. Yeah, whoa, okay. I had something I was going to look up. I forgot it. Already gone. Man, what? So I have this like idea in my head that dragons are the same thing as angels and fallen angels. Man, this is some wild shit coming up on my shit right now. Let's just see. Hell yeah, let's get into it.
Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed.
Hell yeah. Alright. Sick. Hell yeah.
Dragons. Some of the most powerful and widely spread monsters of myth and legend. They come in a variety of shapes and forms throughout mythology, and in many European and Western myths, they are often cruel and greedy, embodying the absolute worst traits in the supernatural world. In the sagas of Norse mythology, one of the most greedy and fearsome dragons was known as Fafnir. In many ways,
Hell yeah.
Fafnir was a primary example of the Western dragon archetype. He was large and imposing, near impossible to face in direct combat, and had a deeply rooted obsession with treasure.
That's the Hobbit, I think.
His appearance tends to vary from tale to tale, never given a full description. Early versions of his story, such as Fafnismal, refer to him as a worm, implying he has a snake-like physiology, whereas later stories, such as the Volsunga Saga and modern artwork, give him powerful legs and even a pair of great leathery wings, resembling the classic image of a medieval European dragon.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Additionally, some later retellings of the tale grant Fafnir a particularly venomous bite, and even the ability to breathe fire. Winged or not, fire-breathing or venomous. An important and interesting aspect of Fafnir is that he did not begin his existence as a dragon, or any other monstrous beast for that matter. In the beginning, Fafnir was a dwarf with great strength and a fearless soul, the son of Riedmar and brother of Regan and Otter, the latter of whom had the ability to shapeshift at will.
Hell yeah.
There came a day when Otter, while in the form of an otter, was killed by the god Loki,
It's a little on the
not
nose.
knowing it was Riedmar's son. Riedmar was enraged by the death of his son and demanded retribution in the form of treasure, enough to fill the otter skin of his slain son. But the otter pelt developed the property of stretching itself to a fabulous size. No ordinary treasure could suffice to cover it. After handing over an overwhelming amount of treasure, Loki threw in one final token, albeit begrudgingly. A magical ring called Anvaranot that had the power to find gold and other treasures.
Oh, hell yeah.
The god was free from his debt, but Riedmar's family's troubles were only just beginning. The ring's original owner, Anvari, had cursed the ring to bring misfortune on the one who possessed it, and caused the death of many, declaring so after the ring had been stolen by Loki. Anvari's curse took hold almost instantly. Both Fafnir and Regan coveted a share of the vast wealth, while Riedmar gloated night and day over his treasure, refusing to part with even a single coin. Mercilessly, Fafnir killed his own father, stole the cursed ring and the whole of the treasure, and scornfully drove away his brother. The exiled Regan took refuge among the villages of men, while Fafnir's avarice and cruelty surpassed even that of his slain father. Andvari's curse bled deep into Fafnir, and he metamorphosed into a ferocious dragon. Fafnir took the treasure into the countryside, fiercely guarding his hoard and slaughtering any who would come near his lair. But Fafnir's reign would come to an end at the hands of Regan's blacksmith apprentice, Sigurd. When Sigurd came of age, Regan told him of Fafnir, the tragic story of his family, and the vast hoard that the dragon slept upon. By playing to Sigurd's sympathetic side, and the promise of a share of the treasure, Regan convinced Sigurd to slay his monstrous brother, and he forged for Sigurd an indestructible sword.
Oh, shit.
As with many stories of evil dragons, Fafnir would not be defeated by brute force alone, no matter how brave the hero or how strong the sword he carries.
Nice.
No, a dragon must be defeated using cunning. On his way to Fafnir, Sigurd encountered a one-eyed stranger with a long gray beard, who told him to dig a trench in the space between Fafnir's lair and the river where he drank from each day, to hide himself within it, and attack the dragon from beneath. No sooner did the stranger finish giving counsel, that he disappeared as quickly as he had arrived. Sigurd did as he was instructed, and dug a hole near the river of Fafnir's desolation, and he hid himself within, sword drawn and ready. Soon, the ground shook, and a reptilian rumble sounded from a nearby cave. Fafnir was coming. The great serpent slithered out, and made his way down to the river, right towards Sigurd's hiding place. Fafnir's savage brain thought little of this change in environment, and stepped right over the trench. Sigurd seized the opportunity, gripped his sword, and thrust it upward with all his might, burying the blade deep inside the monster's chest.
Damn.
With a great bellow, Fafnir had died. Sigurd had prevailed. Regan soon joined with Sigurd, and had him roast Fafnir's heart on a spit for him. While Regan rested, Sigurd accidentally burned his fingers on the cooking heart. He put his burned fingers into his mouth to quell the pain, but no sooner had Fafnir's blood touched his lips, that he suddenly understood the language of birds. As the birds picked at the corpse of the dragon, they warned Sigurd that Regan intended to kill him and take the whole of the treasure for himself. And so Sigurd killed Regan while he slept, and claimed Fafnir's heart, blood, and treasure, including the cursed ring on Varanot. The avarice of Fafnir and his kin had at last come to an end, and the saga of Sigurd would continue. Of the many dragons told of in mythology and folklore, few were ever as greedy and as cruel as Fafnir. Born a dwarf whose family's tragedy led to vast wealth and insatiable avarice, that in turn led to him murdering his own father.
Nice.
This episode is sponsored by Squarespace.
Damn. You already lost me on that one.
I've never heard this talked about before, but the Norse creation story is insane. Let's go ahead and get started. Before the world began,
Nice.
there was a
Let's right
winter
to
that
it.
lasted several thousand times longer than everything that's happened since then. Eventually, as with every eternal darkness, several things began to spill out. Among the first of which were Niflheim, world of fog, and Muspelheim, world of fire. In the Fogland, there was one or a couple of fountains that poured out infinite water, covering everything in ice except the border to the world of heat, which was a whole other area. The combination of these elements clashing created a sort of venom inside that void between them, where the ice melted and froze over and over and over, and all this dripping venom eventually it made a guy. The first guy. This is Ymir. And this is where stuff starts to get rapidly out of hand. Around the time the primordial pool of poison created the giant of all giants, the deadliest force in the world just came into creation over there, and he has a sword now. This is Surtur, ruler of Muspelheim, which may very well mean, if translated, home of the guy who will destroy the world. That's cool. So he wakes up and he just starts swinging his big goddamn sword at the ice because he wants to. He does this like forever. I assume at this point, after having been born, Ymir is just taking a nap. But because Surtur cannot stop swinging his sword, eventually, from the ice, he thaws out Old Bessie. Yep, the order of primeval beings entering creation goes, and I'm quoting, guy bigger than the planet, guy who's gonna ruin everything, and then a cow with massive titties big enough to create 4 rivers of ever-flowing milk. So Ymir wakes up, grabs those honkers, and goes to town. It's kind of funny to me that the stupid joke that people make about, oh, who's the craziest guy that at one point decided to drink cow milk? And they usually think it's some dude named Carl or Toby or Kevin in medieval times wearing a coif, but according to the Vikings, it's actually the second thing that anyone ever did, next to that thing that Tobuscus did in Minecraft. The cow freaks out, losing its nutrients, and starts licking the ice to get the salt inside. Nice. That's the next thing that happens. And this is where things get even crazier than poison creating the first guy who wanted milk. I believe, well, Ymir drank, the cow licked, and emerging from the ice with no explanation is Buri, first of the Norse gods, just yanked from the ice after being licked for 3 days straight. I'm guessing he was the source of salt. Speaking of salt, Ymir, happy and with a belly full of warm milk, takes a nap and starts to sweat like hell. Buri gets up and walking around on baby
milk sweats.
Kinda just goes off to do his own thing for a minute. He leaves the story. While Ymir sleeps, the absolute stink of his armpits and thighs creates little oceans of sweat, and emerging from each stank pit were his children. This armpit lady, this armpit dude, and the 6-headed evil child from beneath his loins. This guy's got 6 heads and he's made from ball sweat. I want to fight him in D&D. Oh yeah, also the 6-headed dude craps out a guy named Burglemeyer. This little family of monsters just waddle around a bit being evil because they're made of poison and cow milk sweat. And then Buri comes back with his son, Bor. I don't even think Buri knows how he did that. They look at this awful smelling pile of a family and instantly decide that war should be waged eternally. Some amount of time passes and they keep hitting stalemates with more giants showing up inexplicably. Then Bor, son of Buri, gets a look at the voluptuous Bestla, a lady giant of the 3rd generation, and it says they get married, so let's go with that. Bing bang boom, 3 beautiful half-giant toddlers. Their names, Rage, Desire, and Action. Or very loosely, Woden, Willy, and Way. Being half-giant, they were the first half-good, half-evil beings, in a basic way. They burst out of Mama Giant, weapons in hand, and raged against the now numerous army of giants. I think they kind of just ran past everyone and sliced into this overwhelmingly obese giant all-father thing, Ymir. Real quick, here's a fun survival fact. Milk is filtered blood. They share very similar nutrients, and many cultures drink animal blood as a sort of liquid meat. Okay, back to the story.
It's really good for you.
So this bloated fat guy...
Blood's really, it's high in nutrients and iron and stuff like that. Like if you have an animal and you don't have, meat, you don't have to eat the whole horse, but you can drink its blood and you'll be all right.
Does nothing but drink milk, spews out a nearly infinite amount of blood. At this point in the Poetic Edda, a lot of characters stop being...
Whoa.
Real quick, here's a fun survival.
Whoa. What is going on with my ears? Sorry, technical difficulty here.
Milk is filtered blood. They share very similar nutrients, and many cultures drink animal blood as a sort of liquid meat. Okay, back to the story. So this bloated fat guy who does nothing but drink milk spews out a nearly infinite amount
I don't
of
know what's
blood.
going on. I don't know if
At
you
this
can hear
point
this
in the
at all,
poetic
but
Edda, a lot of characters stop being mentioned ever again. We can then assume that along with the giants who drowned in the blood, so did some of our favorite characters. Buri, Bor, the sweat babies, the cow probably. Thanks to Odin and family, everyone died, except the Odin brothers, and also the giant that I mentioned earlier. What's his name? Bergelmer. He and his wife.
I don't know what's going on. My shit just got really weird sounding, so I don't know. I'm gonna just refresh this quick.
I've never heard this talked about
Well, that's
before.
not working. Well, that might be it then. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it there, I guess. I don't know what's going on with like that. I don't know what was that was all about, but I just, this is a good just ease back into it. Nice light stuff here. Getting into dragons and Nordic myths. Probably gonna do some more like Norse research. Love that shit. That shit rocks. Pumps me up. Hits me on like a cellular level. But yeah, I think that's it though. Sorry to cut it short, but I gotta figure out what's going on. I'm not gonna do that while I'm recording, but see ya.